So I do think the events of the past few weeks are a wake-up call. They're a wake-up call for investors, for crypto firms, for those who are in the space. And I think they've really revealed some deeper vulnerabilities in the system. One of them is contagion. Clearly you saw contagion not just from Terra to the broader crypto ecosystem, but to Tether, to other stablecoins. So I think that's something that wasn't assumed before, and I think that's something people have to really pay attention to. It definitely shines a light on the importance of the need for regulation. So I think Secretary Yellen said, I think she summed that up really well. I think what's really interesting is Terra USD was an algorithmic stablecoin, so you have a lot of people kind of learning what is that. The other, Tether is not. It's not an algo stablecoin. It's backed by assets. And yet you still had some contagion from one to the other. Why? And I think that's, for those who are like me, bank regulators or kind of historians of money-like instruments, this is a really familiar story. And the way to deal with it is prudential regulation. This is why I think some of the options, the proposals for more of like a bank kind of regulatory type approach is a good starting point for that conversation. So I think these are all live issues that are being kind of debated right now in Congress. And there's a lot of interesting ideas out there. Personally, I'm very open-minded as to like where are these proposals, because there's a lot of trade-offs that are involved. And it's interesting to see these kind of being played out. You're right, like there are some existing bank charter paths. Not all of them have been pursued. So I think this is going to be an interesting time period over the next 6 months or so. I am not, but I think what the world has seen is things go up, things go down. Like that's just the nature of these things. And if you're going to play the long game, which as policymakers, regulators, we're playing the long game, you got to look through all states of the world. When times are good, when times are bad, how does this system work? And that's really, really important. The world. When times are good, when times are bad, how does this system work? And that's really, really important.
Could Bitcoin ever eclipse the US dollar with respect to being the world's reserve currency?
Currently, I don't think so, because it's not stable enough. It's really, how are you going to pay for things with something that's fluctuating that much? So right now, I think it's more a store of value than the medium of exchange. So I think that's a separate question. And the Fed has put out a paper, put out a lot of requests for comment. I think there's some interesting issues there, but I think that's a interesting question. From the OCC's perspective, we don't have a strong view on that right now. So I think there's a lot of focus right now on what's the scope of stablecoins and how stable do they need to be. I fully support all those discussions. I think another angle that needs to be discussed is interoperability. Shouldn't all US dollar stablecoins be fungible with each other? Wouldn't that be a better system? Because right now, crypto is getting more and more fragmented. Each blockchain is like its own railway gauge, and there's more and more of them every day. That's not a very stable system. So I think that system is trying to find an equilibrium where more interoperable, the better, but it's got to be stable. And so I think that there's going to be a search for that, and we want to be part of that conversation.